Would you like to be somebody who understands how society and social media block your spirituality? Then listen to this entire video where I explain how social media sort of numbs you with instant gratification, which prevents you from this sort of disciplined mindset that you need for spiritual freedom, and how social gatherings in society do leave sort of no space to discuss spirituality and moral conscience, I would say, or very little space. So before we get into this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to learn more about self-development, dating, Jungian psychology, and how to reduce suffering in life. Let's get into it. So I would define spirituality quite broadly. It is sort of the feeling of being connected to something that is bigger than you. It encompasses many aspects, like I would say a feeling of being engaged, feeling the meaning of life, religious experience, and mental growth, I would say, are a few of the aspects of spirituality. And this is what I understand under spirituality, but others may have a very different definition that they would sort of apply to the concept. Now, so I've recently been reading the book by Fyodor Dostoevsky called The Brothers Karamazov, which Jordan Peterson recommended. And the book really dives into the topic of the concept of God and morality and human conscience. And there's an ongoing theme of basically how to conduct yourself in life in an ethical way that allows you to sort of find the meaning of life and find spirituality and sort of connect with the concept of God. And it really resonated with me, and it has a lot to do with taking responsibility in life, sort of emulating the behavior of Jesus. And also how our idea of moral conscience within ourselves contains a judge that punishes or rewards you accordingly to your behavior. Like it's not an external God which judges you, but like an internal one, so you cannot escape it. It's always there with you, and depending on how you behave, you really get punished or rewarded. Like you bear the consequences whether you like it or not. Like these very psychological, spiritual ideas are sort of discussed. And the book really opened my eyes in understanding human nature and the consequences we face when interacting ethically or unethically in the world. Like the world really depends on our behavior, and that is really that is really argued in the book, I would say. And so when you read these kind of books, it really inclines you to be more conscious of the way you're influencing other humans in a good or a bad way. You become more sensitive, and you realize how intricate and interconnected reality is, and how you really change the world with every decision you make. But this mindset of being connected to a grander purpose and being connected to my conscience was fleeting. As soon as I went on social media again, or when I entered into social gatherings, social events in person, the feeling disappeared. Why is that? I think social media, I will first discuss how social media and then how society, I would say, blocks your spiritual connection to, anything really. So I think social media tends to broadcast lifestyles of fun and happiness, whether it is parties, attractive people, or adventures. When we consume this content, we are very attracted to it because it portrays instant gratification. It displays fun, and a whole lot of pleasure. As animals, we obviously love to feel pleasure. It's very enticing. It seems to trump our desire for spiritual freedom, and that's very important to realize. When we come into contact with pleasure, our desire for discipline, spirituality, and personal development can disappear, can vanish very rapidly. We are not really able to sacrifice pleasure for spirituality when pleasure is right in front of us. Like, it's difficult to give it up when it's right in front of us, and the prospect of having it is like right there. Hence, the mindset of behaving morally, which often entails sacrificing pleasure, gets flung out of the window, you know? Especially when the content we consume is actually borderline unethical, but is portrayed in a way that is very attractive to us. Like, I have an example of the YouTube channel Nelk. It's basically a group of guys who sort of live a life of like the dream of a teenage boy, you know, a lot of drinking, drugs, a lot of girls, a lot of parties, a lot of pranks, you know, just having a lot of fun continuously. And the pranks they do and the way they speak and behave is like, it's very coarse, it's vulgar, but it's somehow fun to watch. It's very enticing to watch, but when you're realizing, you don't actually notice that it is very unethical. Like these guys are lying continuously to people in public in pranks, but it's like, it's questionable, you know, the ethics behind it. But it's super attractive because it's just like fun, and a lot of like screwing around and doing stupid stuff, especially for a young guy, you know. So it's even harder to say no to this content. And the content frequently displays the dream of adolescents who don't want to bear any responsibility in life, when simultaneously, in order to have spiritual freedom, you need to sort of bear sacrifices and bear responsibilities. Like, you need to discipline yourself. And then what happens is your mind gets clouded. Like, that sensitivity you had before, which enabled you to detect this interconnectedness of reality, just disappears. And I think it might also have to do with the superfluous information that you absorb with social media, so your mind is just overwhelmed and cannot really process it. And I mean, a lot of spiritual teachings, not just, in various religions, sort of promote the idea of reducing the amount of stimuli you absorb. So you should fast, or you should try out abstinence, you know, and that's how that's how you connect spirit. You sort of accentuate, or you emphasize and nurture your spirituality, is by reducing the stimuli. And this is obviously the opposite of what social media portrays, or tries to encourage you to do, at least. And now to society. So how does society block your spirituality? When I talk about society, I'm mainly referring to social gatherings and events, or just generally being in the physical vicinity of other people. So I noticed that during and after I had been around other people, whether it is normal friends or parties, whatever, my connection to spirituality is kind of suppressed. Like, the mindset of listening to your conscience, how I feel, and believing in the necessity of virtue significantly decreases. Like, you need to know that you need to be in that specific open mindset in order to vibe with spiritual concepts. And I tend to be in these mindsets in the evening when I'm alone and contemplating life, or also other times during the day, but they tend to be in the evening. But this vibe is killed when I'm amongst other people. Not everybody, because there are a lot of friends who I can still connect with, but I would say I'm not representative of the average 22-year-old. I would say my friend group is a bit already inclined for spirituality. So why is this mindset, the spiritual mindset, blocked? I think firstly, there are many reasons, I would say, but just to cover the basic ones, I would say, not many people have these mindsets on average, these spiritual mindsets. Like, you cannot relate to many others, nor discuss these topics with other people without being judged weirdly. Hence, the spiritual mindset is not nurtured by other people, but actually ridiculed. People think spirituality is a load of garbage, and it is obviously a vulnerable and sensitive topic, so that makes it even trickier for you to integrate into conversations. Like, you need some guts to bring up the topic in conversation of spirituality, because you know you run the risk of being judged weirdly, or people just disliking the topic. Like, a lot of people simply cannot keep up a conversation on intellectual or spiritual topics because they're afraid of these topics, or they have never thought about them before, which is, that's fine. But some people just shut their mind down in such conversations. Yeah. So one thing I'd like to connect here is that I've been reflecting on what's the utility in praying and going to church? And I think the utility is that when you pray and go to church, you are engaging in a mechanism that is devised to increase the amount of time you spend on listening to your conscience and actively using your mind to question what is right and wrong in life. Like when you pray, you're actively thinking about your life, like what you desire, what is good, what is bad, like asking for forgiveness. Or when you go to church, you're like in the God, the home of God, you know, and you're discussing deep, you know, I would say philosophical, spiritual things, praying, like singing, and it's like you're giving yourself, you're like, these habits increase the degree to which spirituality is integrated in your life, and the fact that these habits are disregarded by many modern people leads to a lag in the or a complete failure of people's moral conscience and their spirituality, I would say. And I myself, I don't go to church and I don't pray, although I would like to start praying now, because I think it's also a kind of meditation, let's say. Yeah. So, in conclusion, I would say social media blocks your spirituality because it tries to like lock you, like lead you into a life of instant gratification, which like jeopardizes your the discipline needed for spirituality and spiritual freedom. And there's also a lot of information you're absorbing which like clouds your mind. And then society, I would say, or social gatherings block spirituality also because a lot of people cannot relate to these topics or ridicule them because they're seen as wishy-washy and a load of garbage. Hence, you know, you're not really inclined to bring up these topics in discussion, and you'd rather hide them. And then if there's no space for it, like it emerges into your mind, and then you don't nurture it yourself, because why would you want to nurture something that is ridiculed by others, let's say? Like, you need a very strong mind to still nurture it whilst everybody around you thinks it is a load of rubbish. Yeah. So please leave a comment below whether you've experienced actually this mindset of spirituality, of moral conscience, but then when you go out into the world and to talk to people, it is numbed, that feeling, that conscience. Whether you've experienced that before. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to learn more about self-development, dating, Jungian psychology, and how to reduce suffering in life. Thank you for listening.